Okay, so today we are diving into the Drake Passage.
Yeah.
The Drake Passes.
The legendary Drake Passage.
This one's notorious. A lot of people maybe haven't even heard of it.
It's one of those places that,
But if you're going to Antarctica,
it's a rite of passage.
this is what you got to get through.
Yeah.
That's that churning stretch of water that separates like the tip of South America
Yeah.
from the South Shetland Islands, which are, if I'm remembering right, still technically considered part of Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that stretch of water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got, charming nicknames like the Drake Shake.
Right, the Drake tax.
The Drake tax, yeah.
Uh,
And we'll get to why. But it's the deep dive that we're doing today isn't just about like how to brace for impact.
it's more than just rough seas.
Yeah, it's about understanding like why this seemingly remote passage
Mm-hmm.
fueled by 40-foot waves.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And crazy winds. How is this actually crucial to the entire planet? And so our main guide today, believe it or not, is the Drake Passage Wikipedia page.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much information is actually packed in there, from how the Drake Passage got its name to its impact on things like ocean currents and even climate change.
Yeah, I mean, so let's start with the obvious.
Mhm.
Why is the Drake Passage so infamous for its rough seas?
Well, for starters, you've got these winds called the roaring 40s and the furious 50s that are just whipping around the globe at those latitudes.
Okay.
And unlike other places on Earth, at those latitudes, there's really no land to slow them down, so they just build and build and build. They push those ocean currents into a frenzy.
So no speed bumps for these winds, just gaining momentum, and that's what creates these monster waves that it's famous for.
Yeah, you've got those intense winds, the unimpeded flow around the globe. And then to make things even more interesting, you've got the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, or the ACC as it's commonly known, squeezing through this narrow passage.
The ACC, that's the strongest ocean current on the planet, right?
That's right. It's like trying to squeeze a fire hose through a straw. All that force just concentrated.
Oh, wow.
That's the Drake Passage, a recipe for some serious wave action.
Okay, so that's Drake Shake explained. But what about, I've also heard this nickname, Drake Tax.
Yes, Drake tax. That's the price you pay for, how can I put this? Digestive distress, let's say.
Yeah.
Those 40-foot waves are not for the faint of stomach.
So you pay the tax one way or another.
Right.
But as daunting as it seems, it's also got this incredible history of exploration. It was discovered by accident, right?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, back in 1525, a Spanish navigator by the name of Francisco de Hoces stumbled upon it while he was trying to sail around South America. However, it was Sir Francis Drake, a few decades later, who really put the passage on the map, even if unintentionally.
Right. He got blown off course
Exactly.
while he was trying to navigate the Strait of Magellan.
Yep, talk about an unexpected detour.
Yeah.
In 1578, his ship, the Golden Hind, got caught in this massive storm and was pushed south.
Oh, wow.
Imagine his surprise when he realized there was open ocean beyond South America. That accidental discovery proved there was a passage between the Atlantic and Pacific, and, well, the passage was eventually named after him.
Even though he wasn't the first one to find it.
Exactly.
What a way to get your name on something, though, right?
Right. I mean, talk about a legacy.
Just blown off course.
Yeah.
And your name's on the map forever.
Mm-hmm.
But so he wasn't the last one to brave these waters, though.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2019, and you've got a crew of adventurers who did something pretty extraordinary. They rowed
across the Drake Passage.
Across, I can't even imagine,
10 fathom.
braving those monster waves.
In a tiny rowboat.
It's unbelievable.
It was an incredible feat. They actually documented this whole thing. There's a 2020 documentary film about it called The Impossible Row. And you know what? It really was.
Wow, that's incredible. But, this brings up a fascinating point. The Drake Passage isn't just a modern day challenge. Its existence has profoundly shaped our planet.
Right.
Like this wasn't always there, right?
Yeah.
Millions of years ago.
Right.
South America and Antarctica were actually connected.
They were all one big happy continent.
Right.
Well, maybe not so happy, but it's all thanks to plate tectonics.
Oh yeah, right, of course.
Over millions of years, these massive plates shifted, pulling South America and Antarctica apart.
Oh wow.
And voila, the Drake Passage was born.
Continental breakup in slow motion.
Exactly. And, scientists are still debating exactly when this happened, with estimates ranging from 17 to 49 million years ago. But what's truly fascinating is not just that it opened up, but what happened because of it.
You mean like the impact on the oceans, on the climate?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's where things, I think, get really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Before the Drake Passage, ocean currents flowed much differently. Imagine a world, no Drake, no free-flowing current around Antarctica.
So the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, the ACC, wouldn't have existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that one change has massive implications. When the Drake Passage opened up, it allowed the ACC to form, creating this barrier between the warmer waters from the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian Oceans
Right.
and the frigid waters that were surrounding Antarctica.
Okay, I can already sense this is a big deal. What happened because of this new current?
Well, that isolation of Antarctica by the ACC is believed to be a major, major factor in the continent cooling down and eventually freezing over. It's one of the reasons why we have Antarctica as we know it today, this massive icy landmass that plays such a crucial role in regulating the entire planet's climate.
So the Drake Passage's existence is directly linked to Antarctica becoming, this giant ice block, which then affects the entire planet.
Exactly.
Talk about a chain reaction.
It's a domino effect.
But it's not just about temperature.
You got it. The Drake Passage and the ACC are also, key players in what's called the global thermohalion circulation. You think of like a giant conveyor belt circulating water throughout all the world's oceans.
I see.
And guess what? The Drake Passage is like a crucial bottleneck in that system.
So even a slight change there could really mess up the entire system.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of pressure for one little passage. What else is going on down there?
Well, the Drake Passage isn't just sitting there passively, funneling this current. The ocean floor there is incredibly rugged with underwater mountains and valleys.
Oh, wow.
And all of this rough topography leads to what scientists call diapicnal mixing.
Diapicnal mixing. Okay.
It sounds complicated.
Yeah, that sounds like a mouthful.
But it's actually really cool. Imagine different layers of a cake.
Okay.
And that's kind of like the ocean, with layers of water at different temperatures and saltiness.
Right.
Diapicnal mixing is basically when those layers get stirred up.
Okay.
And in the Drake Passage, this mixing is crucial because it helps to move colder, denser water from the bottom to the top.
Right.
Which is essential for distributing heat and nutrients throughout the oceans. Think of it like, naturally fertilizing the ocean.
So the Drake Passage is like a giant blender, just keeping those ocean layers mixed up and moving.
Exactly.
Wow. It sounds like this little passage has a lot on its plate.
It does.
From driving ocean currents to influencing global climate, I'm starting to think they should rename it the Drake Powerhouse or something like that.
Yeah, it's a force to be reckoned with, for
Right.
sure.
What else should we add to its resume?
Yeah.
What else is going on?
Don't forget about all the creatures that call this wild place home. Despite these challenging conditions, the Drake Passage is teeming with fascinating wildlife. We're talking whales, dolphins, seabirds.
Oh, that's right. I've seen photos of like those massive pods of whales
Yeah.
in the Drake Passage. And those albatrosses, their wingspans are wider than I am tall.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible.
It's incredible to think that anything can survive, let alone thrive, in such an intense environment.
It really is amazing. That's what makes this ecosystem so fascinating. But for now, let's let everyone just kind of absorb all of this information about the Drake Passage itself before we dive into its incredible inhabitants. So are you ready to trade those 40-foot waves for some equally impressive wildlife?
I think so. Bring on the animals.
Because the Drake Passage isn't just a, churning mass of water. It's a haven for some of the most iconic creatures on Earth.
That's right. It's easy to forget about all that when you're just picturing, like we were, those giant waves. But there's so much life down there. And I think the one that always comes to mind for me are those albatrosses
Oh, yeah, the albatross.
with those incredible wingspans. Like, how do they survive, let alone thrive, in a place where most birds, I think, would be blown out of the sky?
Well, they've managed to turn those ferocious winds into an advantage.
Okay.
Their wings they're perfectly adapted for just gliding effortlessly on those updrafts created by those massive waves.
Wow.
They can soar for hours on end, barely even flapping their wings. They just ride the currents above the Drake Passage.
That's amazing. Talk about making the best of a wild situation, right?
Right.
They're like the surfers of the sky. But even with all that gliding, they still have to eat.
Right.
So what's on the menu for an albatross braving the Drake?
Well, the Drake Passage is teeming with some of their favorite foods. We're talking squid, krill, fish, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And those strong winds we talked about, those churn up the water, bringing a feast of those tasty treats right up to the surface.
So the same conditions that make it such a wild ride for us make for a 5-star dining experience for them.
It's all about perspective, right?
That's right.
And it's not just the albatrosses. You'll find a whole symphony of seabirds out there. Petrels, shearwaters, prions, you name it. If it's a bird that's built for the open ocean, it's probably made a pit stop in the Drake Passage at some point.
It's like a rest stop that's also a giant buffet.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the birds. But what about the whales? I know the Drake Passage is a pretty popular spot for whales too, right?
It is. It's a crucial migratory route for several whale species. We're talking humpbacks, orcas, even the mighty blue whale.
Right, the largest animal on the planet.
Exactly.
Incredible.
And they're all there for one reason. Cruel.
Of course, those tiny crustaceans that are like the foundation of the whole food chain down there.
Yeah, the basis of it all.
It's amazing how something so small can fuel something as massive as a blue whale.
I know. It really shows you how interconnected everything is.
Right.
You know, these whales migrate thousands of miles to the Drake Passage to feast on this abundance of krill.
Wow.
It's like a giant refueling station where they bulk up on those essential fat reserves for their long journeys.
So the Drake Passage is basically a giant all-you-can-eat krill buffet that helps sustain whale populations all around the globe.
Pretty much, yeah. And don't forget about the dolphins.
Oh, that's right.
Hourglass dolphins, you know, those are the ones known for those really cool black and white markings. They're quite common in the Drake Passage, and they've really adapted to thrive in these cold, rough waters, often riding the waves right alongside ships.
I mean, talk about a tough crowd to impress, right?
Yeah.
You're on a ship in the Drake Passage, you're probably feeling a little queasy, and then you see a dolphin effortlessly surfing the waves next to you.
Living their best lives.
That's right.
But it's a good reminder, I think, of nature's incredible ability to adapt.
Totally. You know, it makes you really appreciate the resilience of life, especially in a place as challenging as the Drake Passage.
It really does.
But it also kind of underscores this fact that what happens in this seemingly remote stretch of water doesn't stay there.
Right.
It affects, like we've been talking about, ecosystems, species around the world.
You're hitting on a crucial point. You know, the Drake Passage, it's not just a geographical feature or a body of water. It's this vital part of our planet's climate system.
Right.
And as we've seen, it's also a biodiversity hotspot.
It's a place of extremes,
Yeah.
from those, crazy intense waves to the fascinating creatures that call it home.
Yeah.
But despite its importance, there's still so much that we don't know about the Drake Passage, right?
Oh, absolutely. For example, scientists are still trying to fully understand how the Drake Passage influences what's called the global carbon cycle, which is basically that process of how carbon moves between the atmosphere, the oceans, and land.
Right, right. And that's a big deal, especially now with all the talk about carbon emissions and climate change. So where does the Drake Passage fit into all of that?
Well, the ocean, it actually absorbs a significant amount of the carbon dioxide that we release into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the Drake Passage, with all that mixing and churning that we talked about, it plays a role in that process.
So it's like a giant carbon sink, basically.
Yeah, you could say that. It's helping to regulate the Earth's temperature.
Wow.
But with climate change, that entire process is being disrupted. Scientists are really working hard to understand how these changes in the Drake Passage might impact the planet as a whole. But before we explore that further, maybe we pause here. Let everyone fully grasp, all this incredible biodiversity we've just uncovered.
It's a lot to take in. So when we come back, I think we should shift our focus from the creatures that call the Drake Passage home to its impact on the planet as a whole. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've traveled all the way down to the Drake Passage. We've seen the giant waves. We've seen the wildlife.
We've experienced its wild personality.
Yes, definitely a wild place.
Yeah.
But it's easy, I think, when you think about like a remote stretch of water like this, to just assume that what happens there stays there. But we've learned that is definitely not the case.
Right, not at all. It's all connected.
It really is. Like that old saying, a flap of a butterfly's wings.
Exactly.
The Drake Passage is, I think, a very powerful example of how interconnected our planet truly is.
Absolutely.
We talked about, how it influences the global thermohaline circulation, that ocean conveyor belt.
Right.
That helps regulate temperatures around the world. So it's not just,
It has ripple effects.
huge ripple effects. Yeah.
Across the globe.
So with climate change already impacting our planet so significantly, I mean, it feels even more important now than ever to understand these connections.
He's vital, yeah.
Yeah. We can't just think about protecting, the whales and the albatrosses that call the Drake Passage home, as vital as that is. This goes beyond protecting just one place. It's about recognizing that the health of the Drake Passage is directly linked to our own well-being.
Exactly. Recognizing those hidden connections, understanding that what might seem like small changes can have really far-reaching consequences.
It's definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But I've always said knowledge is power. So, the more that we learn about places like the Drake Passage, the better equipped we'll be to understand, the challenges facing our planet and just to make informed decisions about the future.
Absolutely. It's about using that knowledge to become better stewards of our planet.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I think on that note, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive on the Drake Passage,
Yeah.
we're left with maybe more of a thought than a question. If a place as seemingly remote as the Drake Passage can have such a profound impact on the entire world,
Right.
what other hidden connections are out there?
That's the beauty of it all, right? The exploration, the scientific inquiry. There's always more to learn.
That's right. Always more to learn, more to understand about this incredible planet that we call home. And that's what the Deep Dive is all about. So thanks for joining us on this journey to the Drake Passage,
It's been fun.
a place where adventure meets science and where the only constant is change.